From the land of the Buckeyes to the land of the Hawkeyes, a very good morning from Iowa, where tomorrow night the first votes in this race for the White House will finally be cast. That was the scene 4 years ago on the day before the Iowa Caucuses. We came to you that morning from Des Moines first and later Van Meter, home of the Bob Feller Museum, celebrating the life of the Indians great. That museum, by the way, sits around the corner from the Veterans Hall, and that is where the folks of that town will gather tomorrow night at 7 to do their caucusing. Remember, the polls aren't open all day in Iowa. In fact, there are no polls, no voting booths or machines. Iowans will gather at local churches, municipal buildings, and homes. The Democrats will break up into small groups according to the candidates they support. Then in a colonial throwback, they will literally stand up and be counted.
95.
96.
97.
98.
Hillary Clinton, 193. Bernie Sanders, 82. O'Malley is 5. Undecided is 3.
The O'Malley voters finding one bright spot that night.
We've been undecided.
The whole thing takes place in about an hour. Turnout is traditionally low, so many argue not reflective of the state as a whole. But know this, no candidate has ever finished lower than third in Iowa and gone on to win the White House. Senator Sherrod Brown's going to be watching this whole thing play out from afar, but a year ago this weekend, he was in Iowa after launching his Dignity of Work tour as he weighed whether or not to run for the White House, which he ultimately decided not to do. This week I asked him, not do you have any regrets, but do you ever think, what if?
Well, you always think a little what if. I have no regrets about deciding not to run. I think I get to do all kinds of things in the Senate if I were a presidential candidate. I'd be flying back and forth to Iowa and New Hampshire and not doing my job the way I wanted to and the way I want to and the way I try to do.
Well, here at home, believe it or not, part of the voting process is now open heading into the March primary. On Friday, about 70 ballots were mailed out from Cuyahoga County alone to service members and others voting overseas absentee. Friday was also the deadline that your local Board of Elections had to comply with the state mandate that they be better protected against foreign interference in the election. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose will tell you talk of efforts to interfere in our elections isn't talk. It's a reality.
There are foreign adversaries who want to undermine the credibility of this thing that is really fundamental to our way of life as Americans, and that is the ability to elect our leaders.
LaRose is in Israel, where he was asked to speak about the steps Ohio has taken to protect our election process, including a 34-point security checklist to be completed by the state's boards of elections.
We said, in a perfect world, what would our county board of elections have to do at each of our 88 counties to make sure that we're ready for the very real, credible cyber threat that exists?
Time was the only electronics involved in voting was a plug leading to an overhead light. After the hanging chads of 2000, the push to modernize was real. But with computer technology came vulnerabilities that Ohio has been working to protect.
We have been working on a combination of physical security of our location, cybersecurity of our systems, and training of our staff.
I've made it clear to the counties that my expectation is that they will meet this deadline and there will be consequences if they don't. And it's not a punitive thing. It's simply a matter of these are the steps that we have to take to safeguard our election.
And LaRose tells me next week they will release a list of counties that have completed their tasks while working with the ones that haven't. Well, 4 years ago, Super Bowl Sunday fell 2 days before the New Hampshire primary. New Hampshire, by the way, now one of 14 states in the nation where you can place a bet on the Super Bowl game, something that a record number of people will be doing this year. Since the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in a New Jersey case opened the doors to sports betting, 14 states now offer it, including the neighboring states of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Indiana, with Michigan to follow this spring. As a result, the American Gaming Association estimates that a record $6.8 billion will be wagered on the Super Bowl, up more than 30% from just 2 years ago.
We're going to see a continued evolution there where you're going to have 25, maybe 30 states legal by this time next year, which means that many more Americans will have access to safe, legal sports betting in their home state.
With access, though, comes issues.
In Ohio, the latest research, which was a large study in 2017, shows that over 900,000 Ohio adults are at some level of risk for problem gambling.
That's almost 2.5 times the population of Cleveland, a staggering number in and of itself, but consider the fact it's roughly doubled since 2012, when legalized gambling came to the state.
The Super Bowl absolutely can be a trigger, similar to March Madness. Anytime there's a sporting event that is normalized along with gambling, that gets people who aren't necessarily usually sports betting into that action, and then that can have then effects down the line.
Ohio's approach to sports betting has been a slow and methodical one, but Governor DeWine's been clear.
It's coming to Ohio whether people want it or not.
It's still not clear, though, who will oversee it. The Casino Control Commission, which has authority over the 4 casinos, or the Ohio Lottery, which regulates the 7 racinos. Beyond that, Governor DeWine told me other concerns need to be addressed.
One is sports betting going to be on your app? Is that something that, can we control it enough? Can we have the regulations to protect, somebody underage from picking up your app and betting?
Another is one voiced to him by universities like Ohio State and Xavier that have contacted him worried about betting on college sports.
These are a couple issues that clearly are going to have to be looked at by the General Assembly, but sports gaming is certainly coming to Ohio.
Well, despite their turmoil of late when it comes to the odds of winning Super Bowl 55, your Cleveland Browns are right in the middle of the pack at 30-1. Still behind, though, the Steelers and Ravens. With Democracy 2020, I'm John Kosich. Enjoy your Sunday.